Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So this is a super secret video for Velocity Banking Landlords. We don't allow traditional landlords here because why? They engage in segregation of income and we don't allow that here. Now, before we actually get started, let's just kind of take a look here. You'll notice that Ryan Pineda, a really big YouTuber, has been making videos this year about why rentals are lousy investments, and I actually agree because traditional landlording doesn't work. And if you scroll down here, let me go down. He talks about a lot like, oh, you won't make rental on money on your rental, right? And he's like, buying a rental ain't it, right? And why is that? Well, basically, if you take a look, this is Brandon Turner, who's been affiliated with Bigger Pockets. He wrote an article 2020, I think it's 2023. I think it's written by him. And I should like to show this article a lot, right? Because people don't understand about what good cash flow is rental properties. So what they do is they read a book like Rich Dad Poor Dad and they say, "Oh my goodness, I could borrow all the money in the world, right? Borrow that money and I get a tenant in and such passive income and I get cash flow in there. And for all that effort, you only make $200 a month for your good cash flow. And look how good is in quotes, right? So if this is good cash flow, aiming for $100, $200 a month, what's average cash flow? Probably zero or negative, right? So that's the situation with traditional landlords. And that's why we don't allow traditional landlords here, right? We don't allow them here. But we allow velocity banking landlords. So hopefully, if you are a landlord, you might consider changing your habits if you haven't already. So we can do engage in velocity banking. And you might be wondering, what is velocity banking? So let me go ahead and show you here. All it is a debt payoff strategy using a line of credit as your main operating account. And you only need two things to do velocity banking. You need a budget, right? We talk about this all the time. We need a budget, and your budget is essentially your debt attack plan. And then you need a line of credit as your main operating account to prevent something called the segregation of income. And you're going to also increase your cash flow, right? So, what is segregation of income? Let me just show you here. These are real life case studies that random people have sent me. So basically your income comes in, your expenses go out, and basically your income is split into many different places. And look, take a look at this. Loan one, two, three, four, another credit card, another loan, another credit card here, there, another loan there, and I think here in this case it's like 22 debts, right? Paycheck comes in, gets split into 22 different ways, and how effective is it going to be splitting your paycheck into many different ways rather than putting all your income in one place? And I got oodles of case studies. This is another one too. Segregation of income. Income comes in, split into many different ways, and we're wondering like, why are we broke? Right? And it's the same thing with most landlords too, because think about it, okay? Income comes in, I just pay all of my rental property expenses from my tenant's income, and then I just bring home that little $200 cash flow into my savings account, and that's if it's a good rental property, quote good, right? Like, but I have that itty bitty $200 of savings in my for my reserves, and then once the water here blows out, then there's really no cash flow, right? So yeah, okay. So we're gonna prevent that because instead of just segregating our income, the tenant's income and our income for that little itty bitty $200 cash flow, we're gonna combine it and we're gonna eliminate our debt like a huge drill, right? Like a huge freaking machinery to kind of remove our debt. Now, here's the thing about rental properties, and I talk about this all the time. I would never get into a rental property if I actually needed the money, right? Because here's the thing. Let's say I'm in this pretty good situation here, $6,300 of income, but I decide like, hey, I'm gonna even though I'm in debt right now, I'm gonna get investment rental property. And you can see here that if the tenant doesn't pay me, and again, I haven't included the tenant's income here, if the tenant doesn't pay me, I'm going to be in negative savings. And then what's going to happen if the tenant realizes you need their money? Well, you're going to be begging the tenant, please, tenant, Mr. or Mrs. Tenant, Miss Tenant, or whoever, I need the money to pay my mortgage, or else because I don't have that negative 200 or $200 of cash flow, my life is going to be over. And do all tenants pay? No. We should have realized that in the early 2020s when people in certain cities and states were like, I don't got to pay the rent. Government tells me I don't have to pay it, right? And we want to go get into landlording as a position of strength, in a position of power, not in a position of weakness where like, oh my goodness, I need that tenant's money or else I'm gonna go broke, right? I'm gonna be in negative savings. In fact, we should be in a position that our tenants should be feel lucky that they're in our house because all the other rental houses suck, right? You ever seen all how like in the news how all the big corporations and the hedge funds buy real estate, rental real estate, and then like they don't fix the septic tank, so now it like has pretty much stunk up the whole neighborhood. You ever watch those news stories? Well, yeah, go ahead, go. Don't if you don't want to live in my rental house, go ahead, because I take care of my property. You know what I'm saying? And so if you don't want to live here, I'll kick you out and you can go over there. Okay, so what we're going to do is if we have all this debt, we're going to put the rental property on hold, right? So let's not do this yet. And actually, this is an 8% mortgage and say, hey, we're going to put this on hold and not invest yet because we're thinking about the worst case scenario, and I don't ever want to like be at my tenant's mercy for that rental income. You know what I'm saying? So as you can see, because we didn't invest in rental real estate, hey, we got a little bit of savings left over, which is pretty good. And in fact, $1,000 a month is pretty good, right? Over $1,000 a month. Now, what we're going to do with velocity banking is we're going to do two things. Number one, or assume two things. Number one, same income. And number two, we're not going to have any savings at all, right? We're not going to have any savings at all. So, but we are going to have something called cash flow, even though we're not having any savings. Okay? So, no cash flow, no savings, but we're going to have something called cash flow, which is income minus expenses. And you might be thinking, wait a minute, how is that even possible? Like, what's the difference when these two numbers are the same? Well, we have one more final step, which is to move some of our debt into the line of credit and make it our main operating account. Okay? And let's just assume that maybe we have no, we don't need a $300,000 line of credit, maybe a $60,000 line of credit. And you might be thinking, what's a line of credit? All it is a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay it back, and then use it over and over again. That's all a line of credit is. A credit card's a line of credit. A personal line of credit is a line of credit. A home equity line of credit is a line of credit. Heck, it's in the name. That's how you know it's a line of credit, right? And if you get, let's say, a home equity line of credit because you're putting your home equity as collateral, lenders will give you better terms and rates, right? That's how collateral works, right? And if you screw up and you don't want to have skin in the game, then they'll charge you higher interest rates, right? So it's okay to give our home equity as collateral, and sometimes that could be a good thing because we're putting skin in the game, and the lenders see that and they say, okay, well, we'll give you higher limits and lower interest rates, which is fantastic. That's what we want, okay? So now let's go ahead and move some of this debt into our home equity line of credit, especially the credit cards, right? That's the ones we want to start off with first. Moving this 27 and 26% credit card debt into the home equity line of credit, that's 9%. That's a for sure win, right? So let's sum it up. So 15 plus 27, how much is that? That's $42,000 of debt. Let's move that $42,000 of debt in the home equity line of credit. Okay, now what happens by simply moving this $42,000 of debt? Well, these payments just go to zero. And now we went from $1,300 of savings to zero savings, but we have $2,700 of cash flow. And then the actual velocity banking strategy, once you set it up correctly, is that your entire pay goes into the line of credit and then your expenses comes out of the line of credit, right? And what's the benefit of doing it this way? Well, we have this increased cash flow. Also, when we put our entire paycheck into the line of credit, that minimum monthly payment doesn't even matter anymore, right? And then when we take our expenses out, it's going to be based on we're going to try to do it as late as possible, but it doesn't, it's not going to make a difference if you take out your expenses a few days early. But the cool thing is when we put our entire paycheck in, the interest is going to be based on our average daily balance. So when we dump the whole thing in, the interest is going to be lower than it normally would be, right? So two benefits is the minimum monthly payment doesn't matter, and the interest is I won't say a lot, but it's minimized, right? It's minimized because it's based on the average daily balance, okay? And so now, again, we do the strategy, and after every single month, the balance of these credit cards is going to go down by our cash flow plus some interest. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this and just do some calculations. So the next month is the previous month plus one. Next month's balance is the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest minus our cash flow. So what's our cash flow right here? 2722.6. So 2722.6. Okay. Now, to get the interest, it's based on the average daily balance. So there's a formula for average, right? And then we multiply it by the interest rate, which is 0.09, and then we divide by 12 because it's, even though they quote it annually, they always calculate it monthly. All right, so now let's go ahead and copy and paste these formulas, okay? And then we see right here in month 17, we paid this off. Month 17, we paid this off, and now we are credit card debt free. Credit card debt free. So 17 months, 42K, wablam, less than 2 years, right? People see that $42,000 credit card. Oh my goodness, my life is over. It's not. It's not. We're good. So in 17 months, we paid it off. Now we got three more loans: student loan, auto loan, and the mortgage. And now luckily we have this loan calculator right here, which you can see what the balance is. So if I just type in month 17 here, okay, then I could see what the latest balance is. Now, how do we know which one we're attacking? The auto loan, the student loan, or the mortgage. Now, if you're involved in this situation right here where you got 22 debts, I'm going to tell you the easiest way to figure out which debt to pay off. It's by something called the cash flow index. Like, I didn't start using this until random people started sending me their budgets, and I was like, how the F do you figure out which debts to pay off? And then I started falling in love with this cash flow index formula. It makes it so easy, kind of like a ranking system to figure out which ones to pay off, okay? So we got this cash flow index formula right here. All it is the balance divided by the payment. And with amortized loans, right, the more you pay, payments you make on the loan, the cash flow index number decreases, right? And also determine certain things like the term and the interest rate kind of determine have a role in determining the cash flow index. But if you take a look here, right? If you take a look here, there's a formula of the balance divided by the payment amount, and the lower the number, that's the one you want to pay off here. And anything below 50, if you take a look at the explanation, you definitely want to pay off. I love seeing it below 40. If I see like 38, it's kind of indicator, yeah, this loan is inefficient. Meaning, if I pay up to 16 grand, I get $430 a month. But take a look at this. If I pay off, focus on paying off this 26 grand, I actually get less cash flow for that, right? Like I get a lower payment and I pay more money to get this $300 back. So what we're going to do is take the 16 grand here and then move it to the line of credit. Let's go ahead and move it. Okay, so we're going to do that right here. Let's paste the value and move the 16 grand, 16472.45, right? And by moving the 16 grand into the line of credit, well, guess what happened? The auto loan is technically paid off. Well, the debt is transferred into line of credit, and now this goes to zero. Wablam, right? And so now we only got the student personal mortgage to pay off, but let's go ahead and make sure that line of credit goes to zero, and now our cash flow is 3153.05, right? 3153.05. So let's go ahead and we're going to now update our cash flow after moving it. So 3153.05. And let's see how long it takes to pay off. Well, blam, 22 months. Whoa. All right. So now we got 22 months to pay this thing off. So I'm sorry, not credit. Auto loan paid off in 22 months, and that's I think 64K, right? So now in 22 months, what's the balance of the student loan and the mortgage? And then we can see that here it's 25 grand is the student loan balance, and then our mortgage 192,000. Now, would I move this balance of the student loan into the line of credit? It depends, right? Now, I'll tell you just as a general rule that if you have a cash flow index that's kind of somewhat high, especially above 100, you definitely do not want to move it into a line of credit. So let's say we had a $300,000 line of credit and then we moved it there, right? This $192,000 balance. There's not enough cash flow to offset the interest, right? That's a concept that people don't understand. If I pay this $192,000 and move it from a 3% loan into an 8 or 9% line of credit, and I'm only getting $843 back, I'm probably losing money, right? But here's the crazy thing. If we do something called chunking or incremental payoff, or I call it chopping the loan into pieces, this interest rate difference doesn't really make that much of a difference, and we still don't segregate our income, right? That's the beauty of it, that we don't segregate our income, and chopping it up into little pieces, again, aka chunking, is kind of resistant to the interest rate. Even though it matters, it doesn't really matter that much, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, let's just move $10,000 of, well, it doesn't have to be $10,000. We could just do it somewhere near our income level, like 6,500 into the line of credit, and then just pay it off with our cash flow, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. So let's go ahead and I'll just do one demonstration, but luckily we have a Velocity Banking calculator for this. So what's 25 minus 6? So that'll be 19K. So let's assume that we have 19K. We move $6,000 into, well, actually, let's do 7,000. 7,000. Let's go a little bit bigger. Minus 7,000. Okay, so we have 18K of the balance of the student loan left, and we move $7,000 into our line of credit. So we haven't completely paid this off, right? Plus 7,000. Okay. And let's see how long it takes to pay off that $7,000. Just 1, 2, 3 months, and then we rinse and repeat and over again. Now, the reason why it's hard to estimate how long it takes to pay it off is because we're still making that monthly payment, right? So luckily we have this Velocity Banking calculator to tell us, okay, how long is it going to take us to pay off, given our deets or details or whatever. And let me go ahead and open that Velocity Banking calculator, and let's open that up. And there we go. Let's go ahead and switch screens here and fill in the so-called deets of that student loan. And this will be $30,000. Let me kind of wipe out this information. Okay. And all right. So what is the original balance of this loan? It was actually $30,000. What is the current balance of this loan? It is 25,357.4. 2357.4. And what is the interest rate? It is 4%. 4% at 10 years. And then what is the current the payment? 303.74. Okay. Now what's our income? I think it was 6,300. Let me just quickly check from my other screen. Oh, 6,300. Okay, that's good. 6,300. And then what is our living expenses, right? So let me just check here for our living expenses. It's everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off. So we got our personal mortgage and all of our other food, gas, and insurance. So 2843.21. 2843.2.21. And then let's just move $7,000 into the line of credit and see how long it'll take to pay off. Well, blam, half a year, right? So it'll take us about 6 months to pay this thing off, and look how much. I mean, it's not that much interest originally, but again, we saved a lot of time, right? So we saved a lot of time. It was going to be a 10-year time frame, but well, blam, half a year when we focus on paying off that student loan. And if we had transferred the whole thing, I think it would have been double. If I recall correctly, let's just go ahead and try transferring the whole thing. Yeah, just double. So you still pay it off in half a year, but like I said before, chopping it up into little pieces is the most safest bet when paying off amortized loans, especially if there's a huge difference between the interest rate of the loan and the line of credit, right? And you might be asking, where did I get this calculator from? Well, this whole YouTube channel is a sales funnel to Renata's educational products. So not only did I learn Velocity Banking from Renatus, I learned a lot of other things, which I'm going to talk about today, especially with regards to landlording. And I learned this in 2017. So some of you might be watching Velocity Banking videos for the first time in like 2023, 2024. I'm like, dude, learned this a long time ago, and I actually sell these products because I know they're good. So I make a little commission out of them. uh, Full disclosure, right? Full disclosure. I'm an independent contracted marketer. Quote. Uh, Wait, why did I put the quotes? I don't even know. I say quotes too much and then it just comes out of my mouth. All right, so now let's go ahead and go back to the other screen. Okay, let's go back to the other screen, and then we're just going to fill in the deets. And if you don't know what it is, it's kind of old slang nowadays for details. You ever listen to young kids? They say some weird stuff like skibbity toilet and all that weird junk. But let me go ahead and fill that in. So now it's going to be 28 months. 6 plus 2 is 22 is 28. And then now it's going to be 94K, right? So 94K, and then wablam, this goes to zero, right? And now the last thing is our personal mortgage. So we got to find out what the current balance of the personal mortgage is. So now it's going to be 28 months, right? And then look at what happened with this 3% mortgage. We didn't even pay 10K of principal yet. We're almost there, but look at this, 13 grand, even at 3%. So a lot of the in the first couple of years, we end up paying a lot of interest. Now we're going to focus on paying the mortgage. So one of the things that we have to understand is that with these efficient loans where we only pay a little payment compared to the balance, we're going to end up paying a lot of interest, right? So this is why even though we pay it last, we still have to pay it, like, because I don't want to pay up all this interest. Because let's see if we take this to the full 30-year mortgage, 360, right? That's 3 years, 30 years. I'm sorry, not three. We end up paying about 50% interest. 100,000 interest, 200,000 loan. No thanks. So let's go back, and I'm going to pay this sucker off now. And then let's go to our Velocity Banking calculator. I'm going to go ahead and switch this, right? So let's go ahead and fill it in. So now let me wipe this out, and our expenses is only 2,000. So the payment amount is 843.21, and then our expenses, again, our expenses is everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off. So it's $2,000, and then we originally start at $200,000, and then let's take a look at our current balance, which is 190.58.7. So 190.58.7, right? And the interest rate is 3%, 30 years, okay? And then take a look at this. Oh my goodness, it's paid off in 4 years. Whoa, mind blown, right? And here's the thing, you might have heard on the internet, and I go over this in other videos. Why don't you replace your mortgage with a line of credit? Well, look at this, 12 grand, 4 years, and if I do a replacement, 4.5 years and 42 grand. Now, if you want to throw away 30 grand, just give it to me, right? Like, I'm going to say this all the time. Hey, if you want to throw away 30 grand by replacing your mortgage, just give it to me. So let's go ahead, and now we have 4 years here. So 4 years. Okay, so let me go ahead and switch screens. And now, after 4 years, we paid the sucker off. So what's 28 plus 28 divide by 12 plus 4, that is 6.3 years we are debt free. Okay. And now, again, we decided in this scenario that we're going to be mortgage free first before we even get into our first rental property, which you can. Now, you could decide whether you're going to do this first or just go into rental property. In other examples, I actually went into the rental property first and just we kept paying our mortgage. But let's go ahead and now get into a rental property, right? Because we are definitely in a position of strength. And if our tenant doesn't pay us, we're good, right? We're definitely good. So let me go back. And show you this. So here's the thing. Whenever we buy rental properties, right, we always want to buy it at a discount. This is my property. I bought at the peak of the market, $100,000 discount. Now, where do you find these properties? It's easy. Well, not easy. Well, kind of. You just got to find distressed sellers, right, and make it a win-win situation. Hey, you give me discount, I give you peace of mind, right? Because money isn't always what people are looking for. Certain number of people are willing to trade a piece of mind in exchange for a discount, which we're going to get. So let's assume that we got a $300,000 property for $200,000. We built wealth up front, $100,000 of wealth out of thin air by getting it at a discount. Now, here's the other thing, too. Even if we get a $200,000 or $100,000 discount, it's possible that this rental property might not cash flow. Isn't that crazy? Because maybe the rents are only about $2,000 a month. Just because a property is worth $330,000 doesn't mean that the rents are at a rate where you can make money at buying it at this price. They're not. They're two disconnected numbers. The price to rent versus the price to buy have no direct correlation. This is why you can find news articles about how it's always cheaper to rent versus own in certain areas like Los Angeles. Like, why would you ever own a property in Los Angeles? I don't know. It's always cheaper to rent, right? But people will pay double just to say, hey, I'm a homeowner in Los Angeles. I call it the homeowners, I don't know if you call it a stupid tax, but that's what you might think of it, right? Now, where did I learn that rental properties don't cash flow? So people are discovering this like, oh, in 2024. But I knew this from Renata's, right? So I'm just going to kind of give you a quick intro right here. I took this class in 2017, 2018 by a guy named Chris Albin, right? I think he has a controlling interest over 300 rental properties, and he was originally a school teacher. And he said something in his class, and he teaches three real estate classes in Renata's. He said something that really shocked me because by that time I had drinking the rich dad, poor dad Kool-Aid that you can borrow all the money you want, and he said that rental properties don't cash flow. And I was like, what? Well, why would the rich dad, poor dad lie? You're not famous. And then it just took me a while to understand, like, oh my goodness, rental properties don't cash flow. And the number one reason why they don't cash flow is because of debt, right? It's because of debt. So even if we get it at a huge discount, they're not going to cash flow. But let's assume, okay, let's assume that we got the best case scenario of getting it at our beloved $200 a month, right? So of cash flow. So again, so let's just kind of compare what traditional landlords do, right, versus Velocity Banking Landlords. What the difference in results is, right? So in traditional landlording, let's assume we got the best, good cash flow. Oh, I got to put the good in quotes. Hold on. Cash flow equals $200 a month. And how much is that? So 200 times 30 years times 12, that's 72,000. So if I hold this thing sucker for 30 years, I'm only getting, as a landlord, 72K for that 30 years. Now, how much does the bank make for 30 years? Okay, so let's assume, and we'll just go to the loan calculator here, okay, that we're going to have a $200,000 mortgage, but it's going to be at an 8% interest rate. Now, you might be saying, thinking like, why would there be such a huge rate in the interest rate difference between a personal and an investment mortgage? It's because the investment mortgage is riskier, right? When you don't live there, you don't really care about that property, and lenders know this, right? Whereas if you live in the property, you're much likely to actually pay the mortgage, which is why the low interest rate correlates with the level of risk. So you got a rental mortgage, bam, you might have to pay as much as 8%. And then now our rental property mortgage payment is about 1467. Now, let's assume that we took this to full term, 30 years, 360 months, okay? How much interest are we paying? 328 grand. 328 grand. So again, the bank is going to make all this money while they say, "Hey, man, you should be so proud of yourself because you're a landlord and you're doing all this work." Whereas we don't want to own the property. We're just going to sit there and collect interest, which is our form of rent, right? Because that's rent on money, right? So you do all the work, you manage a tenant, you might become tired one day and just sell the property at a discount because you're unofficial middle management for a bank. Bank's just sitting there making 4 or 5 times more than you, and you're excited about this itty bitty $200 of cash flow, right? Itty bitty, because you're segregating your income. Again, I don't even think you get $200 of cash flow in this instance if the rent is about $2,000 a month. You know what I'm saying? If the rent's 2,000, mortgage payment is 1,400, and you got expenses like insurance, taxes, maintenance, I'm probably sure you're going to be negative cash. But I'm just saying, in the most best case scenario, and I don't know if that's even a word, most best case scenario. In the best case scenario, the bank is going to make 5 times more than we are, and we might as just well get a job in order to get the 72 grand of cash flow, right? You know what I'm saying? So that's insane. Okay, so now instead of just getting that $200, let's not segregate our income. Let's not do that. Let's get our income and the tenant's income and combine forces to pay off this investment mortgage. Okay, so now this is not on hold anymore. And the order that which you pay off, whether you decide, hey, I'm going to pay this off last and pay off my investment mortgage first, it doesn't, it's up to you. But in this scenario, we just decided, hey, we're going to be very conservative and pay off our personal mortgage, all of our debt in about 6 years, and we're okay with now going to rental real estate. Now we're in a real position of strength, right? But sometimes you may want to just get into the investment property, even though your mortgage is still there. But that's okay because it's not a really that big of an expense since you have paid off all your other debts. Now, how much is that investment mortgage? 1467.53. 1467.53. Right. So now let's take a look at this. Right. So how much income do we have now? Well, we haven't added the tenant's income yet. So 6,300 is maybe, you got two people in the same household, they're married or they're a couple, and that would be their income, or maybe that's just you by yourself, right? This is what we call your active income, okay? And then once you get that rental property, you got to add the tenant's income too. So if you have $2,000 a month in that area for your rental income, you don't assume that that's all your profit. You have some expenses. So as a good general rule, just say, hey, 70% of that tenant's income goes to you and 30% goes to expenses, right? So if you want to see the total income, all you do is just add $2,000 and then multiply it by zero point 0.7, which is 70%. And then what we're going to do is now apply this income. Again, we're not going to segregate it and just take the $200 out. We're going to take our whole income and put it into our line of credit so that we don't segregate it, right? Very, very easy to do. So let's just go to the other screen, right? And set this all up for our rental property. Okay. So now it's $200,000, a brand new loan. And remember, this is a $300,000 house. Okay. But it's a brand new loan. And what's the payment amount? Let me just check here. 1467.53. 1467 0.53. Okay. Now here's the crazy thing. I'm going to tell you the crazy thing. If you have your personal mortgage, all of your debts paid off, and you go into rental property, let's say you're the dumbest and the worst landlord in the world. The dumbest and the worst landlord in the world, because when you were a landlord, you completely forgot to pick up your tenant's rental check, or you had a deadbeat tenant and you didn't pay. Okay. Remember, 6,300 is your income without the tenant's income, and look how long it took to pay off that rental property mortgage. 4.7 years, right? Worst landlord in the world, and I paid off my mortgage faster than most people pay off their cars, right? So now, again, let's not segregate. Let's get our income plus the tenant's income. $2,000 times 0.7, 70% of it. 3.4 years in our investing journey, we paid off a rental property. And then take a look at this. So instead of paying that 328 grand to the bank, we only paid 28 grand. Right? Isn't that mind blowing? And so let's just do some quick calculations. So for 3.4 years, we're going to be a little bit patient and just not take any money from the rental property. Like, we don't need that $200 of cash flow. Let's just use the whole entire shebang, our income, the tenant's income, to pay off the debt, right? And then now, after 3.4 years, we have 26.6 years of experiencing true cash flow with the debt paid off. 26.6 years, okay? And we paid 28K, 28.7K of interest. Now, let me go to the other window, right? So let's go ahead and write that down. So with Velocity Banking, okay, how much is the bank making? The bank is making, and let me just check one more time, 28.7K. 28.7K. They were making 328K because we're just doing that landlord thing of taking the $200 of cash flow a month, just paying our mortgage and segregating our income. But as the landlord, now let's calculate how much we're going to make after we paid off our debt. So here's the thing, even though we're assuming a 30-year time period, for 3 years, 3 point whatever years, what was it? 3.4 years, we didn't take any income. So how do we calculate the amount of cash flow we're going to get? Well, it's 26.6 years, okay, times $2,000 times 0.7. Again, we're only getting we have some expenses that are 30% of our income, and we're just assuming the worst case scenario that the rents never go up, right? And again, this is unlikely, but we always want to account for the worst case scenario. Okay, so 70%, and then we multiply by 12 because that's 12 months in a year. How much is that? 446K. So now, as a landlord, you're a true winner. 446K, and now you're making more than the bank. Because remember, in this scenario right here, you're just the bank's unofficial management. Whereas right here, the bank is your third-party vendor. You are not their management. You're making so much more than them, rather than bank making so much more than you. Now, here's the cool thing, right? Okay, I'm going to show you this. What you do is you just keep buying homes at a discount, right? Because you want to build wealth out of thin air. So you want to get that $300,000 house for $200,000. That's what prices usually here are in Georgia, right? In a decent area. You don't want to buy those $800,000 houses because they don't cash flow and you won't get enough rent for those, right? So you want a house that has good potential to grow and has decent rents, okay? And so we're going to rinse and repeat the process again. Buy another $300,000 house for $200,000. Get a tenant in there, okay? And let me just kind of show you how we would rinse and repeat the process with our Velocity Banking calculator. So we do it again. And now let's go ahead and add the tenant's income. So we paid off our first rental property. So the first is paid in 3.4 years, right? Then let's go ahead again and we'll just increase this number to, let's say, 15 grand to accommodate the extra income. We're going to get a new tenant that's going to give us $2,000 a month, right? A new rental, a new completely brand new loan, and now we have three incomes or active income versus and the two tenants income, and one of them has already been paid off. Let's go ahead and click save. Bam, the second one is paid off in 2.7 years. Oh, wow. And then let's go ahead and rinse and repeat the process again one more time. Get a third rental house at a discount. And then wablam, the third one is paid off in third 2.2. So third is 2.2. So now let's go ahead and add this up and see how long it takes us to get three rental houses. So 3.4 plus 2.7 plus 2.2. Okay. Whoa, in 8 years, we have three fully paid off houses. So not only, so think about this. In about 8 years, those rental houses will probably increase in value about $50 to $100,000, right? So we got a $300,000 rental house. Now it's 350 or 400. And if it's 350, let me just do this. We'll say 350 times 3. That's about $1 million of equity. So you became a millionaire in about 8 to 10 years, right? And not only that, you got the cash flow too. And hey, if you don't have another cash flow, just get a fourth rental house, right? So let's just do it one more time. Like I need more cash flow for my retirement or whatever. Well, blam, now that fourth rental house is paid off under 2 years. So it literally takes you less time to pay off a rental house than most people it does for a car. 1.9 years, right? And if that's not enough cash flow, then, just get another rental house, right? So you just rinse and repeat. And that's the power of not segregating your income, right? You get all this cash flow, oodles and oodles of cash flow that a traditional rental real estate investor just does not get, right? And where did I learn this from? Again, I learned it from Renatus. Why do you think I always show this Renatus Velocity Banking Calculator? How did I know that rental real estate doesn't cash flow, right? How did I know that? Well, I knew that because I took classes like real estate red flags. Don't make rookie beginner mistakes, right? And I also took other classes like velocity banking, understanding credit, right? I didn't know anything about credit, and look at me, like I got like oodles and oodles of credit. I got approved for $280,000 of a home equity line of credit because I understand it, right? Results not typical, right? I'm not saying my success is yours, but I paid off my mortgage under 3 years, and I got the receipts to prove it, right? And so I got a rental property. I'll pay it off in about I don't know, 2.5 at the worst, and then I'll just get another rental property. So I don't have to be one of those real estate investors who gets like 20 rental properties a year and is in debt up to my eyeballs, and then I have to deal with 20 tenants. No thanks. This is why traditional landlording doesn't work, because of that segregation, that word that is so outdated. Segregation. We're not segregating our income, right? We're going to combine our income, kind of like Captain Planet. I don't know if you don't know that reference, but it's like with our powers combined, we make Captain Planet. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just look it up on Google. Or maybe, hopefully, I didn't make that up and just misremembering things like the Berenstein Bears rather than the Berenstain Bears. You know what I'm saying? All right, well, that's it for today. So this is just another review. This is kind of like my reality. My reality is right here of how I see banks and how I see landlording. I don't mind being a landlord, right? You just got to do it the right way. Whatever job or work that you do, you want to make sure that you come out on top and not some random person who doesn't even step in your property. You know what this reminds me of? Before I end this, you ever work like a school group project where you did all the work and everybody else got the credit and they might even got a better grade than you? This is a school group project, and school does prepare you for the real world because it's going to happen to you. You know what I mean? You're going to work a group project, you do all the work, and then somebody else takes all the glory. That's what being a traditional landlord is, and that's why there are tired landlords, right? Look up tired landlords on Google. They're a great source of deals. In fact, the guy I just showed you, Chris Albin, right here, Chris Albin. He says, and again, he was a teacher. He says all of his deals came from tired landlords, almost all of them, right? He was like, "You're a landlord? Okay, I'll buy your deal from you." And that's how he got, I think, had a controlling interest of, I know it's at least over 100, but I think the accurate number is around 300, but I might be wrong about that. All right, well, that's it for today. So, again, I don't know about you, but I'm making a secret, quote, society, and we don't allow traditional landlords here, only velocity banking landlords. All right, well, have a great day. Have a happy Saturday, and hopefully you're not going to be a tired landlord in your beautiful Saturday day. Well, goodbye, everybody. Speak next time. It's Korean Atlanta Mentorship.